The grand old party, a party in search of an identity. Some leading social conservatives like Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee are blasting back at the Republican establishment, arguing the GOP did not lose the election on social issues. And Tea Partier Katrina Pierson says Republicans are focusing on the wrong issue and should instead be focusing on taxes and debt to win back voters. So, Katrina, the immediate sort of post-mortem on the election was, how could you lose that many Asian voters, all those Hispanics and all those blacks, all those young people, all the gays and lesbians, and you're saying that wasn't it at all, that's still misguided?
I do. I thoroughly believe that Republicans are having such a hard time communicating to their base, and I don't think that going outside of their principles is going to win them over any more votes. We have to stick to what we know works. Here's the thing, Charles. Tea Partiers turned out and returned Congress to the Republican Party in 2010, not because they were Republicans, not because they were morally on the right side, but because we wanted to return the fiduciary issues back to where the United States government should be, within the United States, and to the people who make it great.
Well, then you feel like at some point, because you talked about the base, it's hard to argue that the base is not getting older and smaller. So at some point, do you have to articulate your core values to your non-core audience? Do you have to find a way to articulate that? Because even if you, say, had won the last election with the strategy that you're describing, there is some point where you're going to have to figure something out to include other people or to get other people to embrace that message.
Well, absolutely. In the 2012 primaries, Republicans spent 3 months during the presidential primary talking about abortion, when in fact the Federal Reserve is pumping out trillions of dollars just from thin air. And the Congress is complicit in spending trillions of dollars over inflation and population in our country. When we should have been fighting on the economy, we were talking about birth control. And unfortunately, that turns people off. And Republicans, national Republicans, need to understand that social engineering is outside the scope of the federal government anyway.
But, Katrina, I guess you would see some, irony that you, Tea Party person, would talk about this when a lot of people feel it were certain Tea Party candidates who made these huge mistakes.
Well, let's correct the record. Most of these candidates that made those mistakes were not essentially Tea Party candidates, especially let's talk about Todd Akin. That was not the Tea Party candidate. Republicans like to call him a Tea Party candidate, but unfortunately he was not for them. So what we need to do moving forward is focus on the founding principles of our nation. The founding document is there, it is being eroded, and Republicans have been complicit. That's why Republicans are losing. That's why Republicans are going to continue to lose. They should be fighting right now, today, and they continue to kick the can down the road. And Republican bases around this country are starting to wonder, why vote for a Republican if they're just going to govern like a Democrat?
And it's interesting because even now, when you talk about recent polls, I've seen where people are more concerned about debt than almost anything else. And that was obviously a huge winning midterm election item that shifted the dynamics in Washington, D.C. dramatically. And to your point, it felt like the Republicans forgot about how bad the economy was, the deficits, the debt, and this kind of thing. How could that happen? Is it just the fact that there's no central leadership? Because it feels like a rudderless ship right now.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. There is no central leadership, with the exception of the establishment consultants to the Republican Party, who, by the way, are wanting Republicans to go moderate on all things, which is the most daffy idea I've ever heard, considering the base is the one they need to get behind the party, and the base is concerned about the solvency of our nation, about the solvency of our states. If we go bankrupt, if we end up like Europe, there is no foundation to fight for anything else.
I've got less than a minute, and I want to ask you about since sequestration, it really feels like President Obama overplayed his hand dramatically. Maybe just snatching victory from defeat, or one of those scenarios. But where does the GOP go from here? Because they seem, at least for the first time in a long time, to have something that proves to the public, listen, the doom and gloom that the president talks about with respect to living within our means does not have to come. It didn't come. Sequestration didn't erode our planet and our country overnight. What do you think? The GOP, can they piggyback off of that?
Well, if they're smart, they will, because there were establishment Republicans who are ready to cave on this issue as well. So this just reinforces the base to hold Republicans' feet to the fire to press on and fight hard.
All right, Katrina Pierson, love it when you're on the show. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.